On today's video, we're going to be making this dropper bottle that you see right here with this level of detail. So just as we normally do, let's go ahead and dive in and get started. First of all, I want to go in here and I want to go ahead and clear my scene. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in a reference image because I want you guys to get in the habit of working with reference. So I'm blurting out my screen here so you can't see all my stuff. So here's a reference image. I just found this one from the internet, so it's not a big deal. I'm gonna change the opacity on it so it's just not blaring over everything else. Right now I've got it in the background and that's fine. And we're gonna start modeling the bottle. So I'm gonna bring in a circle mesh primitive. I want it to be 16 segments because that's just a good number to work with. And I want you guys to remember that 16 too, by the way. Going to edit mode. I'm going to scale it down to match my reference. And I'm going to move the circle into the position at the bottom of the reference bottle. From there, we're going to scale it or build it upward. We'll move the reference to the origin and all that later. But for right now, let's just go ahead and start extruding and scaling. So all I'm doing is I'm kind of matching the contour of the reference photo. That's really all I'm doing here. And this is a cylindrical shaped object primarily, so it's pretty easy. I could have brought in a cylinder too, but I just didn't feel like messing with that. I like working with circles. I just feel like I have a little bit more control. And if you see, when I'm extruding, I'll only go as high as where I see the shape of something change, like an angle change. And I don't want to go too high up on this neck because we're going to build the screw piece of this as well. And I want to select these faces around here. And that's going to be the part of the bottle where the little cap comes down and it meets the little beveled out part of the bottle. This is really easy. So I want to put a loop cut here in the middle. Well, let me bring it down on normals first. And you're going to see in order to get that point to when sub D hits it, it rounds it. I want to put a loop cut right here in the middle and I'm going to hit the S for scale and just bring it out. So when we run sub D on this, it's going to round all that off. It won't be a point like you see here. All right, done. And what I want to do is grab this from the side. I'm going to grab this one piece right here, this edge, and I'm going to split it out into its own selection. From there, it's going to help us start building out the little threads. In videos in the past, you saw me use a plugin to do this, but I want to show you, I'll start showing you guys how to do more of this stuff with just vanilla Blender, because I know a lot of people can't afford the plugins or don't want to afford the plugins, so. Alright, so I want to isolate this edge, and I'm going to grab both sides here, both vertices, and I want to subdivide it a couple times. And as you see, what that does, it adds more vertices. I'm going to grab the vert right there in the middle, and I'm going to move it on the x-axis because I always work orthographic. And I'm just going to move that out. Now from here, I'm going to run the screw modifier. And then I need to tweak some settings in the modifier to make it look like threads. I want 2 iterations, so it'll go around twice. And then I change the screw value here. And what I'm trying to do is get the top of that bottom one and the bottom of the next iteration to almost perfectly line up, because we're going to merge those vertices together. We're going to fuse it. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it. This is going to allow me to select these edges and finish making this piece. So I grab that edge like you see right there, and then I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to get these perfectly aligned by Shift Z and then 0 on the numpad, and then G and Z and bring it down to the Z axis. I want to do the same thing on the bottom, but we're going to go down with it versus up. And I think if you look right here, you can kind of see what I'm doing. I mean, there's the top part of the bottle essentially. But we're not quite done yet, but we got to close some topology off. And as you can see, that little top part of the bottle is just a little too high for me because it goes above the cap in the reference. So we got to scale some of that back down. So go to edit mode, edge select, and I want to go ahead and bring that down like quite a bit. That looks good. And I'm just nudging it down because I don't want to bury it inside the other mesh. So I'm bringing the loop cut here. I'm going to try to line the bottom of that loop cut up with where that thing is looping around there or edging around. And I'm going to do the same with this one. You're going to see why in a second. So I'm going to go to vertex select mode, and I want to merge these two vertices here. I just merge that at the center. Go up here at the top and do it again so I don't forget. Okay, so those are merged. And let me just select everything and merge by distance. And that got rid of two vertices. Now I'm gonna grab this face, I'm gonna inset it. You're gonna see what we're gonna do here. I didn't come up with this technique. It's like the technique everybody uses. There's some slight variations on it, but for the most part, this is how everybody makes the little screw piece for lids or bottles and that sort of thing. So as you can see, I deleted that face and I'm merging these verts together. So I'm basically taking this little piece that's flatter and I'm merging it up to the piece that has a little bit more height on it. There's another way I've done this where it's a quad-based topology, but it starts with that initial shape I made for the screw. But in this case, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to see it anyway. And if you do, it's still going to look fine. So I'm just merging these verts to create a mesh. So let's go down here at the bottom and let's do the same thing. So face select mode, inset, delete that face, go to vertex select mode and start merging these verts. Now I need to do it again. Face select, inset, do it a second time, right? Delete that face, vert select, merge. I'm just doing it where you have tries there at the end, but like I said, it creates a pole there and then you got some tries. It's not how I would normally do the geometry, but you'll see it's going to look just fine. Now what we got to deal with is we got to take this top piece and merge it with the bottom piece. Remember when I said remember 16 at the beginning of the video? If you go back in the video and you look at my modifier for the screw under viewpoint and render, I had it at 16 segments. So I want to make sure those vertices match up. It makes it easy for us to merge this without any kind of weirdness. That's why I said remember 16. So I'm getting as close as I can. And there's a few ways you can do this. I'm Command J in it, merging it to one object. But then, you know, there's probably still a little air gap in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and select that with edge select and merge by distance. And then I'm going to increase the value of the distance in which that functionality has an effect on, if that makes any sense. In other words, I'm gonna say, instead of looking at this little minuscule value of where to merge these verts, go much wider. And because it's only looking at what I have selected, it'll only affect what I have selected. All right, I also want to check my normals. I added a solidifier and that fixed the inside being red. Now it's all blue, because before this was all flat. And notice I waited till I did all of this before I added a solidify. So see, I just disable solidify and it all turns red on the inside, which is a flip normal, or an inside of the normal, if you will. But the only reason why I did it and disabled it, notice I didn't delete it, I just disabled it, because I want to go ahead and sculpt the bottom of this bottle real quick. Can't forget that. Now let's pop a grid fill in here. Might help if I can actually select something. Sorry guys, it's been like a few weeks since I've been in Blender, so my muscle memory isn't what it had been. You almost have to be in Blender every day, to be honest with you, because you start messing with other tools and doing other things. Sometimes the recall is just isn't there. So I'm gonna hit Alt S to inflate, deflate. That just pushes all that up pretty good. All right, so now let's get this bottle up on the origin. And let's get this little air gap out of here. Sit the bottle right on that line. There you go. Now I want to change the origin point to where the cursor is, which is on the origin. So that now puts my center point at the very bottom center of that bottle. So if I rotate that bottle or move that bottle, it's going to do it from that point. It makes it easy to sit it on a table or a surface or something like that. So let's go ahead and put some loop cuts in here, and that's going to force that sub D to tighten up and stay straight along the edges of that bottle. And now we've got sub D on. You see there's a little gap right there. It's like I said, I didn't think I got it all the way. So let's go in here. I'm just going to fix it real quick. And the reason why I left this in the video is one, to show you that you can make this mistake, but I want to show you how to fix it real quick. You don't need to rebuild it or nothing like that. Just fix the verts. So I'm selecting this in edge select mode, and I'm going to merge by distance, and I'm cranking up the distance until this snaps into one piece like that. And then I'm going to go back and look at it with sub D turned back on and see if that fixed it. Because what sub D will do is it'll show you where you have issues like that, because it rounds and curls things in. And if something's not tied together or merged properly, you will see it. See, now it looks nice and pretty. So now I'm going to bring my reference up to match roughly where my bottle has been moved to, because we need to build the cap. So I'm going to grab this edge right here. I want to make a duplicate of it and separate it out as a new object. I'm going to go in the outliner. I'm going to go ahead and name it so I know what it is later. From here, we're going to build the cap. So let's go to vertex select mode so I can see the little dots. And I'm going to move this up to roughly where the bottom of that cap starts in the reference photo. All right, so we're going to do this extrude scale thing again. We're literally using the same technique to build the cap that we use to build the bottle itself. And yet again, the objective is the same. I'm just trying to trace the contour of the reference photo. And as you see, I moved the reference photo left just a hair. just to get it a little bit more centered. Notice I did not move the mesh because I know the mesh is centered because it's right on the origin. Now I'll go to X-ray mode so I can see through everything and see how my changes here are being affected with the mesh below it, which is the bottle itself. That'll let me know how that cap is properly being placed on that bottle. I want to match it best I can with that reference. Doesn't have to be perfect, but as you'll see, it'll be good enough. Just gonna scale it in just a little bit, just very subtly. And I want to bring this up, get that kind of rounded edge right there. I could have just made that flat and beveled it later, but I figured why not just, you know, do it while I'm here. And I want to leave this open because that little plunger piece or the little squeeze rubber piece that comes out of the top is going to need to be there. And I'm trying to build this like you would actually see the real physical thing, where all these are separate pieces. Also, yet again, want to check my normals. And remember, this is flat. The cap is flat, so it's going to be red on the inside until we add a solidify modifier to it. Once we add that solidify, then it goes blue. I like that because you got thickness. And then I'm going to apply it. And then from here, I just turn face orientation off. And let me tweak my reference. Let me get it in the front now, so I can see through my mesh and still see the reference, because we need to do like the little glass dropper piece too. Got to model that, and then I need to model the little squeeze plunger thing on the top. Now just disable reference so I can go in here and select this edge. And yet again, we're going to do the same type of thing. I'm going to select that edge. I'm going to duplicate it. Turn reference back on so I can see what I'm doing here. And X-ray so I can see through everybody. Let's duplicate this edge. And going to hit P, create a new selection out of it, which makes a new model. Or a new object, I should say. And I'm going to rename it in the outliner so we know what it is, just like we did before. Go to edit mode, vertex select, only because I can see the little dots a little bit better. And extrude and scale yet again. When building it from the bottom. You don't have to, I just like to do it that way. It's how I learned it. And it's just habit. This is actually a really good reference photo because it's contrast against a white background and just makes it really easy to see where edges are. I have done some modeling from some reference photos that were almost the same amount of contrast, and it was really hard to see where edges were. So if you can find a reference photo like a photography shot, like an object or product against a white background, or if it's a light colored project that's lit very well against a dark background, where you got a lot of contrast, I found out that those are usually some of the better reference photos to use for modeling, because you can clearly see where edges and curves and stuff are. All right. So far, guys, this is the same story over and over again. Reference photos, I create a primitive shape, I extrude and scale, trace the contour, and then I start building in details from here. Now, I don't want this flat here at the top, so I'm grabbing this one vertex, and I'm going to use proportional editing by hitting O on the keyboard, or the little icon, little round icon up there, and I'm going to hit my scroll wheel on my mouse, and I want more bias for movement to be on that single vertex, but it's going to grab everybody with it because it's proportionally making the change. And that's, remember, sub D is going to round everything out, so it may look like a point without sub D, but But once you turn sub D back on, sub D is going to take that point and make it a rounded shape. So that's how I got the little point up there at the top. I didn't want it, not point, but a little rounded piece at the top. And I didn't want it perfectly rounded. I want to be a little bit of a divot in it. But you'll see when I turn sub D on this thing, it's going to look right. So the little plunger piece up there is flat. I'm going to make that selection, duplicate it, because right here I'm going to make the little glass dropper. Go to outliner, because I've got it all parented up, and go ahead and rename this object. And I know I call that the plunger in the video, but I really wasn't thinking it through while I was doing it. I was just focused on building it. But by me narrating over the video now, I can tell you that's the eyedropper piece that I'm building. I just called it a plunger in the video. So see how putting the reference over the front still allows me to see both my model that I've built so far and the reference. And as I'm building new pieces, it's technically it's behind the it's behind what I'm modeling, but my model's behind the reference, but it makes it very easy for me to see the reference all the time. So you might be thinking, oh, he's done, but I can't be, because when you run sub D, it's going to round it or bow that long shape out. So now I need to put a ton of loop cuts in here, and these loop cuts will enforce rigidity in that shape, and it's going to keep them from bowing out. I'm telling Blender, hey, when I run sub D on this little eyedropper piece, I want it to be straight down this shaft. I don't want it bowing out because of sub D, and that's why I did that. And if you notice down there near the bottom, I didn't put all those loop cuts in there. I'm also going to do the same thing up here at the top where it's kind of flared out. Going to put some loop cuts down here to kind of push everything and force that shape. Because these loop cuts are working like a fence, if you will. They're gonna enforce a particular thing or a particular shape to be maintained. And I've tried to explain this in other videos. But I wanted to be a little bit more rounded down there near the bottom there. So that if you notice, I left those faces a little longer on purpose. Because I'm letting sub D do its thing. Alright, let's put some loop cuts in here. Let's select all these faces. And the only reason why I selected them is just so I can see them a little bit better. Totally didn't need to do that. I'm putting these two fairly close together because I do want there to be some tessellation. Not pinching, but I want there to be some rigid enforcement of that shape. And the reason why I'm putting one near the center is just going to tighten that center a little bit more. And I want to put one here on the edge too, because see how rounded that looks? Boom, just put an edge loop right there, and it just tightens it up just a little bit. I went ahead and beveled it, and it tightened it up even more. See, now it looks a lot better. And I'm having some clipping issues here, which you'll see me address that here in a second as well. So let's go into the view and the end panel, and let's do the clip start and the clip end. Let's change some values here, so as I get real close to an object, it won't disappear on me, because I'm going to show you what that looks like if you guys have never seen this before. See the whole thing disappear? Because I'm changing the clip start. Now watch when I zoom in. This ought to be a good illustration. I haven't seen many videos really discussing it. I may do a short or something on it. It also will affect the viewport, because the viewport will look crunchy. It'll look like kind of pixelated, if you will, and you'll start thinking there's something wrong with your mesh, and there's nothing wrong with your mesh. It's just a clip start and a clip end is the parameters out of whack. See how it's like I can't see it, it just disappears when I get to a certain distance, and then I change these values and it comes back. This allows me to zoom in closer. See, I get real close. Let's go back in there. Let's go to view. Let's change the clip start again. See, I'm backing down the values, getting it small. And now it lets me zoom in much closer to my object. So anyway, I didn't really explain it, but I just kind of showed it to you. If you ever have that problem, that's the first place to look. All right, so this is still flat. We need to put some thickness on it. So let's put a solidify modifier on it. The default should be fine. Yep. Let's go ahead and apply it. So now the thickness is actually there. I'm going to go in the edit edge select. I'm going to grab these two edges and I'm going to put a tight little bevel on them to enforce that shape. Okay, sub D, shade smooth, good enough. I don't want to burn too much time on that. All right, now let's address the cap here. I'm just doing some light little cleanup, tightening up work. I'll grab some edges here. And let's put some tight little bevels on them for the same reason. Also visually, it's going to make it look more realistic because there's no perfectly straight edges on anything, including a razor blade. It's got like a little bit of curvature to it on a micro scale, but it's there. For something like a product, you want to make sure that you have a good use of bevels. Let's put some loop cuts on the inside to reinforce the inside shape so it doesn't look muddy and all puffy because of sub D. I want to grab these edges up here, do the same thing, tight little bevel for the same exact reason, reinforcing the shape. All right, so I want to grab these edges right here, and I'm going to make the little grips that go around the edge here. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but I'm going to take the lazy approach today. I'm going to create a selection out of that. I've done this a lot of different ways because this was something when I first started modeling. I was like, how in the world are people doing that? Because if you actually try to do it along the side here by doing checker deselect and all kinds of stuff like that, it doesn't always work. You get tessellation and it causes your round cap not to look round anymore. So I'm just, for this sake of this video, I'm just doing a copy. I'm going to subdivide it. And then I'm going to go in here in face selection mode and I'm going to grab every other face. Because if you do checker select, it'll grab literally every other face, not every other column of faces. So I'm gonna grab every other column of faces here. All right, so just so we don't screw up and have to do this again, let me create a vertex group. A vertex group is basically a bookmark of my selections. It saves a particular selection I have. I use this all the time. So now I'm going to grab these guys, I'm going to inset them, and I'm going to do extrude along normals, push them out, and go back to object mode. And I didn't need to do sub D. I just did it for, you know, why not? But I probably should not have done it. I probably just should have left sub D off so these stayed straight. But I wasn't thinking. And what I did is I merged them into the cap. And now the cap is still round and smooth, whereas I've got these little grippers on there, which normally would not have been round and smooth because of the whole, you know, topology thing. All right, so now we're done with that. Let's go ahead and create a label. This gets much easier now. So I'm gonna grab all these faces across the front. I'm I'm going to turn the bottle around to the back view, orthographic. And I'm still in face selection. I'm just going to grab these two columns of faces here. I want there to be a little bit of gap. I'm going to go grab these two columns of faces here. I'm going to separate that selection into a new mesh. Give it a name in the outliner. And I want to make sure it's parented to the bottle. Now let's go to look dev mode. And I added a shrink wrap modifier and a solidify modifier to it, but the solidify I believe I pull off and just use the shrink wrap. Shrink wrap's gonna kind of shrink wrap it to the front of that bottle. Since there's not like a lot of waves or bends or anything like that, the label will stay pretty flat, but it keeps it kind of sucked to the front of that bottle. All right, so now I'm in materials. I'm creating a glass shader for the bottle. I want one of those like kind of dark medical blue bottles. Now you can't really see through it because we're in look dev, so let's go to cycles and let's go to render mode. Now on my setup, I turn all the lights off in cycles in my scenes by default. I don't want any lights in it because I like to add my own lights. In this case, I'm going to add in an HDRI, which I want to do an environment texture. So let's go in here. I'm going to select one of my HDRIs. Like I said, yet again, I'm censoring the screen because I don't want everybody to see my stuff. Let me find a good one. There you go. There's a good one. There's a really good one. I really like this HDRI. All these can be found for free on Polyhaven, by the way. Or HDRI Haven. I think that might be the name of it. But anyway, just do a search for free HDRI. You'll find the website. So I'm changing the strength here. I want it a little bit brighter. So there's the bottle, and I'm doing the whole parenting thing here. Now I'm gonna set up my camera, because right now we're gonna finish doing textures, but I'm kind of putting in scene orientation at the same time. I'm gonna change the focal length of my camera. I want to be like a nice tight product shot. It takes a lot of the lens distortion out when you go with a higher focal length. Makes it a little bit flatter. You also tend to get nice bokeh effect when you do that. All right, now I'm doing a material for the label, giving it a name. And due to the fact that I forgot that I was not recording part of that, I'm just going to show you the node setup for the materials. There's the label. There's like the little squeezer plunger thing at the top. Here's a shinier black plastic for the cap. There's a label again. And then there's the glass material. All right, so now let's go ahead and isolate the eyedropper. And there's the material for the eyedropper, but I need to change the index of refraction value because it's a little high. So I'm gonna crank it down about 1.100, and that looks about right. I had it at 172. It was a little too high. It didn't look real. So 1.1 is what we went with there. Now I bring everybody back, save my file, and let's go ahead and fast forward so we don't make this video too long. I want to drop in a kitchen scene just as a backdrop. I'll go in the Blender kit and I just pull in something for free. I got a plane down here. I made it look like a marble counter. I UV unwrapped it offline. I mean, if you guys do any modeling at all, you guys just know to do that. And if not, look at some other videos where I discuss it in more detail. So I'm not trying to scale this kitchen up 1-to-1 realistic. I literally want it as a backdrop, but there's certain elements I want to be able to see in the camera view. So you'll see I'm just going to kind of play with it a little bit here. And the reason why I cut a lot of this out in my videos is, man, I'm telling you, I could sit here for like 15-20 minutes. Like if I ever had OCD of any kind, this is where I would have it. Because as an artist, I'm just trying to comprise my shot just the way I want it artistically. I want you to know that's a kitchen. So there are certain elements I want to be in the background of that shot. So that's why I said, for the sake of this, I don't care if it's scaled right or not. It just needs to be believable. Because that bottle is not going to be huge. But the camera's got a high focal length. It's zoomed in on the bottle, so the bottle is prominent. And after a lot of screwing around, this is what I came up with. This is your final product right here. If you guys have followed along with this and everything made sense, then you should have something very similar. If you like this content, do me a favor by liking, subscribing, and clicking that notification bell so you know when the new videos are coming. I'll see you guys in the next one. You've done a phenomenal job. Take care. Have a good week.